But yeah, I mean, many people will be annoyed that it's another Jumbo-Visma victory. I mean, we're not going to speak about Japan really, but they nearly won that as well with Olaf Koy. Philipsen was the one who managed to ride really well in that one. But this sets up Flanders really well as well, don't you think?
Yeah, I think it absolutely does. I think those three are definitely you'll see those at the top of the bookies list, that's for sure. And the way with Flanders is that usually the favourites do tend to win. I think the last kind of person who was kind of more unexpected was perhaps Bettiol maybe in 2019 or something, but he even showed good flashes of form. It is the people who are in good form right now who tend to do quite well. It's rare that somebody will just come out of the blue and take the victory. And it wouldn't surprise me if those three ended up in the exact same scenario next Sunday, to be honest with you. However, it's going to be like an hour of extra racing, like an extra 50 odd kilometers or so. And, Pogačar was really putting the hammer down on the Order Clermont, and that only took place one time in E3, and it's going to be there a lot more times. And Wout van Aert was suffering on the Order Clermont just on that one time. So, Pogačar could be the reason that Wout van Aert ends up not being there, just because he seems to favour, or he said in his interviews that he favours the Ardèche Clermont because it's a bit longer and it's a bit more suited to him because it's the longer effort. So I reckon it's all going to go down on there, and I think it'll be an absolutely cracking race next Sunday. I really can't split the difference between any of them right now. I really think that any one of those three could win it right now, but I'm sure that we'll be doing previews or whatever. So you'll just have to tune in or whatever
I
to
mean,
other
we
channels.
should try and make the case for Wout van Aert winning. He's never won Ronde van Vlaanderen, and we know he's finished second, but
Yeah.
how does he win it? I think we both think they have the strongest team. They've shown that we haven't even talked about Gent-Wevelgem yet, but they have all the team players that they need. You've got the Laporte, you've got Nathan van Hooijdonk. Like the team is just insane. Ties Benoot, we haven't talked about. Dylan van Baal, it's like the second place finisher of last year's Ronde van Vlaanderen and winner of Paris-Roubaix. So, I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
teammates, is that a thing that you really need? And the finale of a Tour of Flanders is not really something we're used to seeing teams having teammates in that like last 20, 30K.
I think the teammates would certainly help, but you might end up in a weird scenario where Dylan van Baal or Van Hooijdonk, Laporte, etc., is up the road, and therefore they need to get brought back by, we're presuming, Pogačar and Van der Poel. But what if you end up in a scenario where it's like, well, we want Wout to win, but now we've got our guy up the road and he's not getting brought back. So then you're like, oh, no, what do we do? Because now we need Wout to win, but he's stuck here. I think that Wout needs to just kind of play it like he did with E3. He did it there. Just try and do something similar as much as you can. Hopefully, his teammates, I think, will be there to be able to protect him, especially when you consider that Alpecin looked a lot stronger than I think a lot of people were expecting at E3. Søren Kragh was a big factor in that race for Van der Poel and was part of the reason why Van der Poel was such a strong contender late into the race. I think that Wout can certainly win Flanders, but it's going to require, I reckon it'll probably be like a sprint kind of style thing. I reckon that, I don't know, it's hard to say. He could very much kind of rock up and just drop people on the climbs, but he just didn't quite have that get up and go at E3. I reckon that if he can just kind of hang with and just kind of go with Van der Poel and Pog, but I reckon he could beat him in a sprint. And especially with that mental factor that he's just beaten Van der Poel, he could certainly go into that sprint with a lot more confidence.
I mean, we might as well join Gent-Wevelgem in here to some respect. That race was absolutely horrible. The torrential rain, everything was just, you wouldn't want to cycle your bike in that weather. But there, like, well, we know Wout van Aert has won that race before. We know last year, Christophe Laporte looked like he was going to take, everyone was thinking he was going to win, I think. Apart from Biniam Girmay, which was good for him, but and good for Air Trail, blah, 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 blah. What happened on Gent-Wevelgem was basically like we hit the Kemmelberg for the second time, and Wout van Aert and Laporte just rode away from everyone else. This destructive force. Yeah, and then they went on to win by more than 2 minutes and handed the victory to Laporte, which I think was a huge gesture and first French winner since 1997 and all that. But I mean, the form that Wout van Aert has, he even rode away from Laporte on the final Kemmelberg ascent, but like waited up for his teammate. But it's just the frustrating part there was we didn't have the comparison with what Mathieu van der Poel. Could he have hung on there? Tadej Pogačar, like they are just three riders in a league of their own right now.
Yeah, literally. I think that almost the most impressive part about Gent-Wevelgem is that this isn't some new strategy by Jumbo-Visma that we haven't seen before. This has been done multiple times now. Think back to Paris-Nice last year. Think back to the Tour stage that finished in Calais last year. Think back to just all the kind of 1-2 kind of attacks that we've done this year in all the races. It's not new. It's just that people can't fight it. It's so hard to overcome, like Wout van Aert when he's backed up by his team as well. And like you're saying, he was weighing up for Laporte as well. He is literally just in a league of his own with Van der Poel and Pogačar. Yeah, it would have been nice to perhaps have them there, especially since they're not doing Dwars Doors even on the provisional start list, that is. Perhaps they're just wanting a bit more of a rest period going into Flanders, probably. We'll have to wait and see. I think that, yeah, it was great to see. Like, Wout van Aert he was just literally the strongest guy there today. And when you compound that with the cold weather and like the cold and wet, it just makes it even more deadly. But the thing is, it's not even like an advantage that he has over a Van der Poel or Pogačar, because they both also ride well in the cold and wet conditions. So it's kind of like it's all still just a stalemate, but it just depends if, can Jumbo-Visma can Laporte go with the punches? Can Van Baarle be there at Flanders to kind of ease the pressure on Wout and put the pressure onto Pogačar and Van der Poel? I reckon if they could do, for sure, but I reckon Wout van Aert's certainly going to be he's going to be a much more confident man going into Flanders next weekend, do you reckon?
Completely. I think Tadej Pogačar and Mathieu Van der Poel looked at the weather forecast for Gent-Wevelgem and thought, nah.
Yeah, nah. Well, that's the thing, like, by riding that race, cold and wet, it's possible that riders get ill off of that. And they Pogačar and Van der Poel just thought, you know what, I don't want to take that risk.
Yeah, that's very true. But would you back Wout van Aert to win Ronde van Vlaanderen next week?
Oh, what, back him over Van der Poel and Pogačar?
Yeah, he says he wants a big one this year, so
I feel like I'd definitely back him over Pogačar. But it's just a Van der Poel effect. He is kind of the king of Flanders, like the Tour of Flanders, isn't he? I know he got beaten by Asgreen, but he he just knows how to do that race so well. He's really good he's really good on like a one-on-one sort of thing, but if Pogačar's there as well, perhaps it complicates things a bit too much. I feel like, given that how he rode at E3, I reckon I would back Wout to win Flanders next weekend. Yeah, I reckon I would.
I mean, we'll have to wait and see. It should be very exciting.